few videos back, I made a video about some comments that Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, had made regarding religion, particularly about his experience with Christianity. And within that video, he said some things along the lines of the contrast of like spiritual versus religious. And I said within that video that I might make a separate video about like spiritual versus religious. This is that video, because it is such a more commonly used phrase now that people say something along the lines of, I am spiritual but not religious. What does that mean? I'm going to talk about in this video what I think it is supposed to mean from the people who say it, what the difference is between like spiritual versus religious, and what I think that really means. So the contrast, what do these things mean when someone differentiates the two? Something along the lines of being religious means that you standardly believe this, and this, no questions asked, because you are bound by stating that you belong to this religion. You follow these XYZ rules, regulations, practices, which might be somewhat restrictive to a person, and you do or say whatever your religion says because that is your religion and you are bound and sticking to that. Whereas this understanding of spirituality seems to be something more along the lines of, I believe that there's something greater beyond myself, but it's not defined. It's not really, exclusive. It's just something that you're constantly searching for. And this spirituality is a freedom, a fuller expression of myself. But I don't really belong to any kind of, church or some kind of larger explicit religion, because that usually comes with the rules and regulations, which don't really make sense to me because it doesn't seem to align with the freedom of being spiritual. And I'm really just trying to find what resonates with me. Really just kind of some broad generalizations of what I think that kind of stuff means for someone who would say something along the lines of, I'm spiritual but not religious. Obviously not precise and not universally what that means, but along those lines. It's an interesting take, and I don't know the history on it of how, if this is just a more modern movement. I think it does have to do with a lot of the relativism that we see now, some agnosticism. I think too, there's a very, very popular video online that is by Jefferson Bethke called I Hate Religion, but I Love Jesus, something like that, where he talks about how Jesus came to abolish religion, and religion is like the kind of thing that the Pharisees had, and his thing was more spiritual, more something else, which there are a number of problems with that video. If you want me to make a video responding to that video too, maybe that one's in the cards as well. But the idea of being spiritual but not religious is something that's very common in our society today. You have a lot of people who might not even say that specifically, but are along those kind of lines in the way that they think about faith and spirituality and religion, all that kind of stuff. So it's a thing. Here's what I think that really means. I think it could mean, one, you say religion is a man-made construct, so I'm not going to follow it because it's man-made. So I'm not gonna do what this religion says or what this religion says, because it's all a bunch of old white guys who came up with this stuff. So I'm just going to follow what I come up with, what I think is spiritually nourishing, what I think makes sense the most. The issue with that, though, is then it's your religion that is also man-made. So when we really come down to it, maybe the question there is, what comes the closest to, for example, along the lines of Christianity? Because I think the spiritual versus religious thing comes up a lot in terms of Christianity, but the question comes more to, okay, well, what is the closest thing to, Jesus? And that would likely be the tradition handed on to his apostles, the people who were around him all the time. That would be the closest thing that we have to an authentic spirituality or religion, which, would be the Christian faith that we experience now. Now, of course, there were probably, and I'm sure there are, mistakes that have been made over the 2,000 years since Jesus was around. But if we are looking for something that's as authentic as possible, that hasn't just been like handcrafted by a bunch of old white guys, then we can trust the religion that was passed down from Jesus to his apostles to us now. Second thing I think it could mean, which I think it really is, this is what a lot of the expression is that religion, the way that it's generally set up, constructed, just doesn't really resonate with me. It doesn't make me feel the way that I think religion, spirituality should make me feel. So I'm going to do instead whatever I find that makes me feel excited and the way that I think religion should make me feel. The problem with that is that we are human beings, so we don't know what is best for us because we have a tendency towards sin and we are very short-term oriented, so we want things that will, especially in our day and age now where everything is immediate, we want something that's a little more exciting, a little more maybe freeing, but we're humans, we are not God, so we don't know what is best for us. And when we create our own spirituality, when we create the spirituality and religion that resonates with us the most, we make ourselves our own God. I think what plays into this, like I mentioned before, is relativism, which is extremely common in our culture and society today, that there isn't one best way. It just comes down to what is subjectively best for me. But what if there is an objective truth? What if there is a best way? Because if we think of this in a larger context of having eternity on the line, I know I at least would like to trust someone more than myself. Like, I don't know if I would trust myself to take care of my own salvation, which is kind of what we do when we create our own spirituality. So then if there is a one right way, if there is one way to best believe and best live, how do we do that? But also, I think the challenge is, how do we best express that and share that and live that out in a more modern context? Because like we said, things are just more fast-paced. People need a little more like short-term, something more engaging. How do we best express and share that in today's technological age, in the day where people need and engage with things in different ways? And that doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't mean changing beliefs, because if there are objective realities and truths about like fundamental things about human existence, but there are ways I think that we can create faithful, religious, spiritual experiences for people that can meet a modern need or a more like short-term, exciting, freeing feeling that meets people where they are to nourish them. Because I do understand, like, a lot of people sitting in, for example, a Catholic Mass think this is the most boring thing in the world. It could be the best thing for you, but if you get nothing out of it, for a lot of people, it becomes like, what am I doing here? I'm wasting my time. If you don't have the understanding of like, I'm rambling. How do we make religious experiences more attractive and engaging to people? And how do we express teachings and beliefs more lovingly and effectively? Because I think there is a way to, and that's something, maybe a challenge for us to bridge this gap of where religion is boring and restrictive and all these kind of things. Lastly, what I think this means is someone who says, I'm spiritual but not religious, is unwilling to own their faith. Because if you just say, I'm only spiritual, I don't belong to any church, I don't belong to any group or religion, there's no exclusivity, and it really is like easier. And I think in part that has to do with like, you don't want to associate with the negative elements. Because for example, as someone who is a Catholic, people think about Catholics so much more differently now that there's this massive sex abuse scandal, and that's something that for many Catholics we now become automatically associated with that. That's our group, that's our church. And if you are someone who says, I don't want to associate with the church and the negative things that go along with it. You might say, I am more spiritual because I believe in the teachings, relationship with Christ, a lot of these good things, but I don't want to associate with the poor expression of those things. But either way, I think it's a little bit of like almost a cop-out or an easy way out to say that I don't want to take that next step and say, no matter what, this is what I believe, this is my community, this is my group, this is my religion. The exclusivity of belonging to this group is like a next step. And for some people who say I'm spiritual but not religious, don't want to take that next step. Don't want to make it something that they identify with. Don't want to make it something that they have to like own up to, and don't want to be judged by other people. If you say I'm a Christian, you're going to get a lot of like feedback from people that would respond negatively. Don't want to deal with that. Someone might say, I kind of believe most of that stuff, but I don't want to say that I'm religious. And I gave this example last time to maybe tie all this stuff together about a dating relationship in the context of this like spiritual versus religious thing, saying that religion is almost like bad to an extent and spirituality is good. This is kind of where what the argument is. But for a dating relationship, give an example. If you are dating someone, or if you have a boy and a girl, you love each other, and you just say, we're just gonna love each other. It's gonna be a free expression of love. There is no exclusivity here. We're not boyfriend, girlfriend, we're just two people who love each other. That's probably not gonna work as well as if the guy says, will you be my girlfriend? And the girlfriend says, yes, I will be your girlfriend, and you have these exclusive titles. And you have this one-on-one relationship now. Now within the context of that relationship, you have things that you agree upon, some practices, things that you normally talk about, things that are mutual understandings between you that help that relationship to work better. Doesn't make the relationship more restrictive because you have these mutual understandings, healthy boundaries, things that help the relationship to function for you guys to understand each other. If there's too much of the like free flowing in your relationship and there's no boundaries and there's no mutual understandings, it becomes tough, run into a lot of problems. And then to another extent, talk about love languages. Within the context of a relationship, it's not just about me, right? It's not just about how I think I can best love you and respect you. It's about how you are able to best feel loved and respected and worthy in the context of this relationship. So we introduce these love languages. How can I best make you feel loved? Whether it's like gift giving, words of affirmation, physical contact, all these different love languages that we have, that we understand. I dropped my phone on the floor. But it helps us, and it helps the context of a relationship for the other person to feel loved, because it's not all about me. It's not all about me deciding how to love you best, but us being on the same page to meet each other where the other is. So I continued to ramble on for a few more minutes, and the video never came to like the main point that I wanted to get across. So here I am wrapping this video up. What this comes down to, our experience and expression of faith, is a response of love to a God who first loved us. And that is some kind of, spirituality that we experience, the freedom of love and the beauty of, having a relationship with God. A loving relationship is the kind of idea of spirituality. But with that image of a dating relationship where healthy boundaries, exclusivity, the idea of like love languages works there, it works too in a relationship with God, which brings in the idea of religion. Rules, regulations, practices can be a good thing. Can be things for us to help us authentically worship God, not simply in a way that makes us feel really good, but in a way that is right worship and a right response of love to a God who first loves us. This was a long video to get across that point. It shouldn't be this divide of like a spirituality versus a religion. The things go hand in hand to create a response of love to our God, and that is really what should be an authentic expression of faith. Hopefully you got something out of this video. It was a long ramble of sorts. Leave a comment down below. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it. See you in the next one.